The alarm bells rang across the crystal towers of Zilara Prime. Ambassador Thyra Vel-Neth pressed her six-fingered hands against the viewing window of the council chamber. In the distance, orange flames rose from the outer districts where the Korthak ships had landed just hours ago. "They burn everything," whispered council leader Myra Vental, her blue skin pale with fear. "The gardens, the art centers, even the healing temples. Why do they destroy what has no value to them?" Thyra had no answer. The Korthak horde had swept through 12 Zilani worlds in the past month. Each time the story was the same. The massive black ships would arrive, demand surrender, and then take everything: food, technology, art, and people. Those who resisted were killed. Those who did not resist were taken as slaves. The Zilani had tried to fight back. Their ships were beautiful, built for exploration and trade. They had powerful shields and fast engines. But they had no weapons. Violence was something that did not exist in their world. Their planet had no dangerous animals, no wars, no conflicts that could not be solved with words. "The emergency council is ready," said Myra. "What options do we have left?" Thyra looked at the datapad in her hands. 300 Korthak ships surrounded their planet. The Zilani fleet had 40 ships, all of them designed for peace, not war. The math was simple and terrible. "We can surrender, and hope they treat us well as slaves," said one council member. "We can try to run and hope some of us escape," said another. "Or we can fight and die with honor," said a third. Thyra shook her head. "There is one more option. The old beacon." The room went quiet. Every Zilani knew about the beacon. It was found in ancient ruins on their homeworld, buried deep underground. The technology was older than their civilization, older than their recorded history. Strange symbols covered its surface, and it contained a message in a language they could barely understand. The message spoke of guardians, protectors who would come when called. But it also spoke of terrible things: wars that consumed entire star systems, creatures who lived for battle, worlds where death came from the sky, the ground, and the very air itself. Most Zilani believed it was just a story, a myth from some ancient civilization that had destroyed itself through violence. But Thyra had studied the beacon for many years. She believed it was real. "The beacon speaks of Deathworlds," said Myra. "Places where everything tries to kill everything else. Even if such places exist, why would we want help from creatures who live there?" "Because," said Thyra, "we need someone who understands violence. Someone who can fight." The council argued for an hour while the Korthak ships moved closer to the capital city. Finally, they agreed. Thyra would activate the beacon. If nothing happened, they would surrender. If something did happen, they would face whatever came. Thyra went down to the underground chamber where the beacon waited. It was a smooth black cylinder, 3 meters tall, covered with symbols that seemed to move in the dim light. She placed her hands on the activation panel and spoke the ancient words she had memorized. The beacon came to life. Light poured from the symbols and filled the chamber. A deep humming sound shook the walls. Then suddenly it went dark and silent. Thyra waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. Above ground, the Korthak had stopped their advance, as if they were waiting for something too. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, the beacon's signal reached a deep space monitoring station. Lieutenant Commander James Park was drinking his third cup of coffee when the computers started making noise. "Sir, we're getting something strange on the emergency frequencies," called Ensign Martinez from her station. Park walked over and looked at the screen. "What am I looking at?" "It's a distress signal, but the language is weird. The computer is trying to translate, but it keeps talking about crystal seas and gentle winds and creatures who breathe poison." Park read the translation on the screen. The message told of beautiful worlds under attack by demons. It spoke of peaceful people who had never known war, facing enemies who lived only to destroy. It asked for help from the Guardians, whoever they were. "Is this some kind of joke?" asked Martinez. "Run it through the verification protocols," said Park. "If this is real, we need to wake up some important people." 2 hours later, Admiral Sarah Chen sat in the emergency meeting room at Earth Defense Command. Around the table were the top military leaders of humanity. The translated message played on the main screen. "So let me understand this," said General Morrison. "Some aliens are under attack by other aliens, and they think we're their ancient protectors?" "That's what it looks like," said Admiral Chen. "But look at the tactical data buried in all the flowery language. The attacking force has 300 heavy warships. They use fear and overwhelming force. They take prisoners as slaves. This is a real military situation. Captain Marcus Rivera leaned forward. The beacon technology is thousands of years old. How did they know to send the signal to us? Maybe they didn't, said Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Xenobiology Department. Maybe they sent it everywhere, hoping someone would answer. Or maybe, said Admiral Chen, someone left that beacon for exactly this purpose. The room fell silent. The idea that ancient aliens had somehow known about Earth and humanity was disturbing. But the distress signal was real and people were dying. What do we know about these Korthak? Asked General Morrison. Captain Rivera pulled up a data file. We've been tracking their movements for months. They're a warrior culture, but they've never faced serious resistance. Their tactics are simple. Show up with overwhelming force and demand surrender. When that works every time, you don't need to be creative. And the Zelani? Peaceful traders and explorers? They've never had a war. Their ships are beautiful, but completely unarmed. They wouldn't last 5 minutes against a serious military force. Admiral Chen stood up. Recommendation? We go, said Captain Rivera without hesitation. These people asked for help. They're facing genocide, and maybe it's time the galaxy learned that there are consequences for bullying peaceful civilizations. The Third Fleet can be ready in 6 hours, said Admiral Chen. But I want to be clear about something. We're not going there as conquerors. We're going as protectors. If these Zelani are as peaceful as they claim, they deserve our help. And if these Korthak want to prey on the weak, they're about to learn what happens when you pick on someone who can fight back. The meeting ended quickly. Orders went out across the solar system. Ships were loaded with supplies and weapons. Marines checked their equipment. Engineers prepared repair drones. In 6 hours, the largest human fleet ever assembled would jump into hyperspace. On Zalara Prime, Thyra Vel-Neth stood on the council chamber balcony and watched the Korthak ships in the sky. They had not moved closer, but they had not left either. It was as if they were waiting for something. Maybe the beacon didn't work, said Myra beside her. Maybe, said Thyra. Or maybe it did, and help is coming. What kind of help could come from a death world? Thyra didn't answer. She had studied the ancient texts for years. She knew what the beacon promised. Warriors from a world of endless conflict, protectors who had learned to fight against impossible odds, guardians who would come when called. She just hoped they would be friends, not new enemies. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zelani system like thunder in a clear sky. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant and watched the tactical display light up with contacts. 300 Korthak ships surrounded the inner planets, just as the intelligence reports had said. Ma'am, we're being scanned, reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. Let them look, said Admiral Chen. Commander Park, open a channel to the Zelani government. The main screen flickered and showed a tall, slender alien with blue skin and large dark eyes. She wore flowing robes and had an expression of desperate hope mixed with fear. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force, said Chen. We received your distress call. The alien's eyes went wide. You came. The Guardians came. I am Ambassador Thyra Vel-Neth of the Zelani Confederation. We did not know if the beacon would work. Your people are in danger. We're here to help. Can you tell us the current situation? Thyra's hands shook as she spoke. The Korthak have surrounded our homeworld. They demand complete surrender within 12 hours or they will begin burning the cities. Our ships cannot fight them. We have no weapons, Admiral Chen blinked. No weapons? At all, we do not understand violence. Our world has always been peaceful. We have shields and fast ships, but we have never needed to hurt anyone. Captain Rivera stepped forward. Ma'am, these people are completely defenseless. They're like children. On the screen, Thyra heard the comment and looked confused. Children? But we are an advanced civilization. We have technology, art, philosophy. We have explored 100 star systems. But you've never had to fight for anything, said Admiral Chen gently. Your world gave you everything you needed. Yes, said Thyra, still confused. As it should be. Why would a world hurt its children? The bridge crew exchanged glances. Earth had been trying to kill humans since they first crawled out of the oceans. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Humanity had been fighting for survival since before they discovered fire. We need to meet in person, said Admiral Chen. Can you come to our ship, or would you prefer we come to yours? Please come to our ship, said Thyra quickly. The Celestial Harmony is in orbit around our third moon. We would feel safer on familiar ground. An hour later, Admiral Chen and a small team shuttled over to the Zilani ship. As they docked, Chen couldn't help but admire the vessel. It was beautiful, built like a work of art. Smooth curves, crystal windows, and decorative patterns covered every surface. It looked more like a luxury cruise ship than a military vessel. Thyra met them at the airlock with a dozen other Zilani. They were all tall and thin, with delicate features and graceful movements. Their clothes were colorful and flowing. They looked like they had never experienced hardship in their lives. "Welcome to the Celestial Harmony," said Thyra with a formal bow. "We are honored by your presence, Guardians." "Please, just call us humans," said Admiral Chen. "We're not gods or legends. We're just people who got your message and came to help." The Zilani exchanged worried looks. "But you come from a death world," said one of them, an elderly male named Vorketh. "The ancient texts speak of worlds where everything tries to destroy everything else. Places of constant war and suffering. Earth can be dangerous," admitted Captain Rivera, "but it's also beautiful. The danger taught us how to survive, how to adapt, how to protect each other." They were led to a conference room that looked like a garden. Living plants grew from the walls and ceiling. The chairs were made from what looked like crystallized music. Everything was peaceful and perfect. "Tell us about your enemy," said Admiral Chen as they sat down. Thyra activated a holographic display. Images of massive black ships filled the air, along with recordings of the Korthak themselves. They were large, heavily muscled humanoids with gray skin and bony ridges covering their faces. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that looked like they were designed to cause maximum pain. "They arrived 1 month ago at our outer colonies," said Thyra. "They demanded complete surrender and tribute. When the colonies tried to negotiate the Korthak, they killed everyone. Then they took all the resources and moved to the next world." "What do they want?" asked Rivera. "Everything," said Vorketh bitterly. "Food, technology, art, people. They take it all. Those who resist die. Those who surrender become slaves." Admiral Chen studied the tactical data. "Their ships are powerful, but they're not using complex strategies. They just show up with overwhelming force and demand surrender." "It has always worked before," said Thyra sadly. "No one in this region of space has ever fought back. We don't know how." "You're about to learn," said Admiral Chen. "But first I need to ask you something important. Are you willing to fight? Are you willing to risk your lives to protect your people?" The Zilani looked at each other uncertainly. We don't want to hurt anyone," said Thyra. "Sometimes you don't have a choice," said Rivera. "Sometimes the only way to protect innocent people is to stop those who would harm them." "But that makes us like them," protested Vorketh. "If we become violent, how are we different from the Korthak?" "Because you're not doing it for conquest or greed," said Admiral Chen. "You're doing it to protect your families. There's a difference between aggression and defense." The meeting continued for 2 hours. The humans explained basic military concepts while the Zilani struggled to understand how anyone could choose violence. Finally, Thyra stood up. "We will try to learn," she said. "But you must understand, this goes against everything we believe. We have never hurt another living being. The idea terrifies us." "We know," said Admiral Chen softly. "But sometimes being terrified is the first step to being brave." As the humans prepared to leave, young Zilani named Kira Nalven approached Captain Rivera. "Is it true that your world tried to kill you?" she asked. "Every day," said Rivera with a smile. "Ice storms that could freeze you solid in minutes. Volcanic eruptions that could bury entire cities. Predators with teeth as long as your arm. Diseases that could kill millions. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods." Kira stared at him in horror. "How did you survive?" "We learned to work together. We learned to adapt. We learned to never give up no matter how bad things got. Earth made us tough, but it also made us care about each other. When everything is trying to kill you, you protect the people around you. And now you protect us?" Rivera nodded. "That's what strong people do. They protect those who can't protect themselves." Back on the Defiant, Admiral Chen called a meeting with her senior staff. "Assessment?" she asked. "They're completely unprepared for warfare," said Rivera. "But they're not stupid. They have advanced technology and they're willing to learn. With time, we could teach them to defend themselves." "Do we have time?" "The Korthak have given them 12 hours to surrender." "That was 6 hours ago." Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display. The Korthak fleet hadn't moved, but they were clearly waiting for something. They're testing us, she realized. They know we're here. They want to see what the mysterious Guardians can do. Orders, ma'am? Admiral Chen smiled grimly. Let's show them what Deathworlders can do when someone threatens our friends. On the Korthak flagship, Warlord Thexgaran studied the sensor readings of the human fleet. 40 ships against his 300. The newcomers were smaller than his vessels, but there was something different about them. Something dangerous. Should we attack them, Warlord? Asked his second-in-command. Not yet, said Thexgaran. I want to see what these Guardians are capable of. If they are truly from a death world, this should be interesting. He had never heard of a death world before, but the name intrigued him. The Korthak respected strength above all else. Perhaps these newcomers would provide the challenge his warriors had been seeking. Captain Marcus Rivera stood in the cargo bay of the Celestial Harmony, facing 12 young Zelani volunteers. They looked nervous, shifting from foot to foot and avoiding eye contact. Behind them, human engineers worked frantically to install weapon systems on the beautiful Zelani ships. Okay, said Rivera, trying to keep his voice gentle. We're going to start with something simple. Basic self-defense. He held up a training weapon that fired harmless light beams. The Zelani stared at it like it might explode. This is called a stunner, Rivera explained. It won't permanently hurt anyone, but it will stop them from hurting you. Kira, would you like to try holding it? Kira Nalven, the young Zelani who had asked about Earth, stepped forward with shaking hands. She took the weapon and immediately dropped it. I'm sorry, she cried. I can't. It feels wrong. Like holding death itself. Rivera picked up the stunner and sat down on a nearby crate. Let me tell you something about my first day of military training. I was 18 years old, fresh from a farming colony. The drill instructor handed me a rifle and told me to shoot at a target. I threw up. The Zelani looked surprised. You were scared too? Terrified, admitted Rivera. But my instructor told me something I've never forgotten. He said, the weapon isn't evil. It's just a tool. What matters is the person holding it and why they're holding it. He stood up and offered the stunner to Kira again. You're not holding this to hurt innocent people. You're holding it to protect your family, your friends, your entire civilization. That makes you one of the good guys. This time Kira managed to hold on to the weapon. It still shook in her hands, but she didn't drop it. Good, said Rivera. Now let's talk about something easier. Teamwork. He pulled up a holographic display showing a simple formation. On Earth, we have these things called pack hunters. Wolves, for example. Individually, a wolf can't bring down a large prey animal, but working together, they can take down something 10 times their size. The Zelani nodded. This they understood. Cooperation was natural to them. Your ships are faster than the Korthak vessels, Rivera continued. So we use that. While the human fleet draws their attention, your ships dart in and out, hitting their weak spots and running away before they can respond. Vorketh, who had joined the training session, raised his hand. But won't they chase us? That's the idea, said Rivera with a grin. We want them angry and confused. Angry enemies make mistakes. Meanwhile, in the engineering sections of a dozen Zelani ships, human technicians worked alongside Zelani engineers to install weapons. It was proving to be a cultural challenge as much as a technical one. I don't understand, said Zelani engineer Myra, Telvash as she watched Chief Petty, Officer Johnson mount a pulse cannon to her ship's hull. Why do the weapons have to be so ugly? Johnson paused in his work. The pulse cannon was indeed ugly compared to the Zelani ship's artistic design. It was purely functional, built for one purpose, to destroy enemy vessels. Because, said Johnson carefully, sometimes function is more important than beauty. This cannon could save your entire crew. But it mars the harmony of the ship's design, protested Myra. Can't we make it more elegant? Johnson thought for a moment, then smiled. Actually, yes. The housing is just for protection. We could design a decorative shell that matches your ship's style. Myra's face lit up. Really? We could make weapons that are also art? Why not? Said Johnson. Beauty and function don't have to be enemies. On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Admiral Chen monitored the Korthak fleet. They had been waiting for 8 hours now, content to let the humans scramble to prepare defenses. It was a tactical mistake that spoke to their overconfidence. Ma'am, called Lieutenant Torres, we're getting a transmission from the Korthak. Flagship. Put it on screen. The Image that appeared showed a massive alien warrior covered in scars and wearing dark armor decorated with trophies from previous battles. His eyes were intelligent but cruel. "I am Warlord Thexgaran of the Korthak Horde," he said in heavily accented but understandable English. "You claim to be the Guardians. You claim to come from a death world. Prove it." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen. We're here to protect these people. Leave this system and no one has to die." Thexgaran laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "The Zalani called for help from legends and got, 40 small ships? You are outnumbered 7-1. Numbers aren't everything," said Chen calmly. "Prove it," repeated the warlord. "Face us in battle. If you are truly from a death world, show us what that means." The transmission ended. Admiral Chen turned to her tactical officer. "Captain Rivera's assessment? The Korthak are warriors, but they've never faced a real fight," came Rivera's voice over the comm from the Zalani ship. "They're used to enemies that surrender after the first shot. They don't know how to handle an opponent that fights back. And our Zalani friends? They're learning fast. Fear is a good teacher. But Admiral, they're still civilians. If this goes bad, most of them won't survive a real battle." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. "Then we make sure it doesn't go bad. All ships implement Plan Delta. Let's show these bullies what happens when they pick on the wrong people." The human fleet began to move. Instead of forming a traditional battle line, they spread out in a seemingly random pattern. To the Korthak, it looked like panic or incompetence. "Sir," reported Thexgaran's tactical officer, "the enemy ships are scattering. Should we pursue?" "No," said the warlord thoughtfully. "This is either cowardice or strategy. Since they claim to be from a death world, I suspect it's strategy." He was right. The human ships had positioned themselves to create overlapping fields of fire, while leaving escape routes for the Zalani vessels. It was a formation designed by people who had studied every major space battle in human history. "Korthak Fleet," came Admiral Chen's voice over all frequencies. "This is your last warning. Leave this system immediately." Thexgaran's response was to order his entire fleet to attack. The first wave of Korthak ships moved toward the human formation like a massive hammer. They were confident, expecting the smaller human vessels to break and run. Instead, they found themselves flying into a carefully prepared trap. The human ships opened fire with precisely coordinated salvos. Instead of trying to punch through the Korthak armor with brute force, they targeted specific systems. Engines, weapons, sensor arrays. A ship that couldn't move or shoot or see was effectively out of the battle without being destroyed. "They're not trying to kill us," observed the Korthak tactical officer with surprise. "No," said Thexgaran, his respect for the enemy growing. "They're trying to disable us. They show mercy even in battle." Interesting. But the Korthak had numerical superiority, and some of their ships broke through the human defensive lines. That's when the Zalani ships entered the battle. Kira Nalven sat in the pilot seat of the Swift Current, her hands shaking as she watched her targeting display. A Korthak destroyer was bearing down on a damaged human frigate. The destroyer's weapons were charging for a killing blow. "I can't do it," she whispered. "Yes, you can," came Captain Rivera's voice over the comm. "You're not a killer, Kira, you're a protector. Think about everyone counting on you." Kira closed her eyes and fired. The Swift Current's pulse cannon, now decorated with beautiful Zalani artwork, sent a stream of energy into the Korthak destroyer's engine section. The enemy ship spun out of control, its attack run ruined. "I did it," Kira breathed. "I actually did it." "You saved lives," said Rivera, "both human and Zalani. You should be proud." Across the battle, similar scenes played out. The Zalani ships, guided by human tactical advice, darted in and out of the combat zone like angry hornets. Their speed and agility, combined with their unwillingness to fight for conquest, made them unpredictable opponents. The Korthak had never faced an enemy that fought purely for defense. Every move the humans and Zalani made was calculated to protect life, not take it. It was a fighting style that confused and frustrated the warrior culture. "Warlord," called his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from 12 of our ships." Thexgaran stared at the tactical display. In 2 hours of fighting, his fleet had lost nearly a quarter of its ships without destroying a single enemy vessel. The humans had damaged or disabled 80 Korthak ships while losing only 3 of their own. "How?" he asked. "They fight like they've done this before," said his tactical officer. "Every move is practiced, coordinated. They know exactly where to hit us to cause maximum damage with minimum effort." And the Zilani? They're learning. Every attack is more coordinated than the last. The humans are teaching them during the battle. Thexgaran made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He opened a channel to Admiral Chen. Enough, he said simply. You have proven your point, Admiral Chen. Your people are indeed warriors worthy of respect. Does that mean you're leaving? Asked Chen. It means, said Thexgaran with something that might have been a smile, that I would like to learn more about these Deathworlders who fight with such skill and honor. The meeting took place on a neutral space station at the edge of the Zilani system. Admiral Chen walked into the conference room with Captain Rivera and Ambassador Thera beside her. Across the table sat Warlord Thexgaran with two of his lieutenants. The Korthak leader was even more impressive in person. Nearly 3 meters tall, covered in battle scars, with eyes that held both intelligence and barely controlled violence. You fight well, Admiral Chen, said Thexgaran without preamble. My fleet has conquered 40 star systems. We have never faced an enemy that could disable our ships without destroying them. Your warriors show great skill. Thank you, said Chen carefully. But we're not here to trade compliments. You attacked peaceful people. Why? Thexgaran's expression darkened. Because they were weak. In the galaxy, the strong take what they need from the weak. This is the natural order. No, said Thyra suddenly, surprising everyone with her firm tone. That is not natural. That is chaos. True strength protects the weak, not exploits them. The warlord turned his attention to the Zilani ambassador. You speak of protection, but your people cannot even protect themselves. How can weakness teach strength about its nature? Captain Rivera leaned forward. She's right, though. On Earth, the strongest predators are also the most careful about what they hunt. A smart wolf doesn't attack a bear just because it can. It attacks when necessary for food or protection. Earth, said Thexgaran with interest. Tell me about this death world of yours. For the next hour, the humans described their homeworld. They told of ice ages that lasted thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, diseases that killed half the population. They spoke of hurricanes with winds that could level cities, earthquakes that could split continents, and predators that had evolved specifically to hunt humans. And yet you survived, said Thexgaran thoughtfully. We did more than survive, said Rivera. We learned to work together. We developed technology to protect ourselves from our environment. We created art and music and literature. We reached for the stars. Because you had to, said one of the Korthak lieutenants. Your world gave you no choice but to become strong. True, admitted Chen. But we also learned that strength has responsibilities. The strong should protect the weak, not prey on them. Thexgaran was quiet for a long moment. My people have a saying, only through conflict does one discover true strength. We have traveled the galaxy seeking worthy opponents, but we have found only victims. Maybe you've been looking in the wrong places, suggested Rivera. Explain. You've been attacking peaceful civilizations. Of course they can't fight back. They've never needed to learn how. But there are warrior cultures out there. Pirates, mercenaries, other conquerors. Why not test yourselves against them instead of innocent people? The warlord's eyes lit up with interest. You know of such opponents? The galaxy is full of them, said Chen. But here's the thing. If you want to be remembered as great warriors, you need to fight for something meaningful. History remembers protectors, not bullies. Thexgaran stood and began pacing. His lieutenants watched him nervously. Among the Korthak, the warlord's moods could change quickly and violently. You offer an interesting perspective, he said finally. But words are easy. I would know if these Deathworlders are truly as formidable as they claim. What do you have in mind? Asked Chen, though she suspected she already knew. Single combat. Champion against champion. If your warrior defeats mine, the Korthak will leave this system and never return. If my champion wins, he paused, thinking, then you will teach us the ways of your people. Show us how Deathworlders fight. Rivera started to stand, but Chen held up a hand. Not single combat, she said. That's too much like the old ways, deciding everything based on individual strength. I propose something different. Name it. Fleet combat. Limited engagement. No weapons that can destroy entire ships. First side to disable half the enemy fleet wins. Honor combat between warriors, not a fight to the death. Thexgaran's lieutenants looked shocked. Warlord, said one of them. This is not how the Korthak way. Silence, growled Thexgaran. The Deathworlders offer a new way to test our strength. I find it intriguing, he turned back to Chen. Agreed. 20 ships each. Weapons set to disable only. But I want to know, what do you gain if you win? Your word that the Korthak will stop attacking peaceful civilizations, said Chen immediately. And if I win? Chen exchanged glances with Rivera and Thyra. Then we'll teach you everything we know about warfare. Tactics, strategy, honor codes. How to be warriors instead of raiders. Either way, you're willing to teach us? Either way, the galaxy becomes a better place, said Chen. If you win, you become honorable warriors. If we win, innocent people are safe. That's worth the risk. 3 days later, the two fleets faced each other in empty space beyond the Zelani system. The human ships were outnumbered as usual, but this time it was by design. 20 human vessels against 20 Korthak ships, all weapons set to disable rather than destroy. On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Admiral Chen watched the enemy formation. The Korthak had arranged themselves in a traditional battle line, impressive and intimidating. It was exactly what she had expected. All ships begin Phase 1, she ordered. The human fleet scattered in all directions, just as they had done during the first battle. But this time the Korthak were ready for it. They broke their formation and pursued the individual human ships. They're learning, observed Rivera from his position on the Zelani flagship, where he was coordinating with their new allies. Good, said Chen. That makes this more interesting. What followed was the most complex space battle in galactic history. The humans used every trick they had learned from centuries of warfare. They used asteroids for cover, coordinated their fire to target specific systems, and employed electronic warfare to confuse enemy sensors. The Korthak responded with raw aggression and superior firepower. Their ships were tougher and hit harder than the human vessels. When they managed to corner a human ship, they disabled it quickly and efficiently. But the humans had one advantage the Korthak couldn't match: experience fighting against overwhelming odds. Every human tactical manual assumed they would be outnumbered. Every training exercise was designed around winning through superior strategy rather than superior force. Their ships are faster than ours, reported the Korthak tactical officer to Thex Garin, and they're using some kind of coordinated targeting system. When one of their ships locks onto us, they all know exactly where to hit. Adapt, ordered the warlord. Show them that the Korthak can learn as well as fight. The battle raged for 4 hours. Both sides lost ships to disability systems, but neither could gain a decisive advantage. The humans were more agile and coordinated, but the Korthak were stronger and more durable. Then something unexpected happened. A human frigate, the UES Courage, suffered a catastrophic system failure during combat. Its life support began to fail, and the crew was in immediate danger of death. Captain Torkash of the Korthak destroyer Bloodfang was closest to the disabled ship. His orders were to disable enemy vessels, not rescue them, but as he watched the human ship drift helplessly through space, he made a decision that would change everything. Signal the human ship, he ordered. Offer assistance, sir, said his tactical officer in confusion. They are warriors who fought bravely, said Torkash. Warriors do not leave other warriors to die needlessly. The Bloodfang moved to dock with the disabled human frigate. Within minutes, Korthak emergency teams were helping to evacuate the human crew. On both flagships, the commanders watched this development with interest. Your people have honor, Admiral Chen said to Thex Garin over the communication link. As do yours, the warlord replied. They fought well today, but the battle is not over. Actually, said Chen with a smile, I think it is. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, stand down. Weapons to safe. Battle is concluded. What? Thex Garin's image on the screen looked confused. Neither side has lost half their ships. No, agreed Chen. But we've both learned something important. We've learned that honor and strength don't have to be enemies. Your captain chose to save lives instead of winning points. That tells me the Korthak have the potential to be great allies instead of just great warriors. Thex Garin was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. Admiral Chen, he said finally, I believe you are right. This battle has shown me that there are different kinds of strength. The Korthak have much to learn from these Deathworlders, and we can learn from you too, said Chen. Your people's courage and commitment could be valuable in protecting innocent civilizations. You would trust us with such responsibility? Trust is earned, said Chen, but everyone deserves a chance to earn it. On the Zilani flagship, Ambassador Thyra watched the two fleets slowly move toward each other in a gesture of mutual respect. She had activated an ancient beacon asking for protection, and instead had witnessed the birth of something new. An alliance between warriors and peacekeepers that might change the galaxy forever. 3 months after the battle that changed everything, Ambassador Thyra Velneth stood in the newly constructed Unity station above Zalara Prime. Through the viewing ports, she could see ships from 3 different species working together in what had once been a war zone. A sleek Zilani exploration vessel docked next to a functional human destroyer, while a massive Korthak transport ship unloaded supplies for the refugee camps on the planet below. It was a sight that would have been impossible to imagine just a few months ago. "The morning reports, Ambassador," said her new assistant, a young human named Lieutenant Sarah Kim who had volunteered to help coordinate the relief efforts. Thyra reviewed the datapad. 47 pirate ships defeated in the Outer Rim. Korthak and human joint fleet successful in rescue of Andrali colony. No casualties on our side. "The Korthak are really taking to this protection business," said Kim with a smile. "Warlord Thexgaran says his warriors have never been happier. They finally found enemies worth fighting. And enemies that deserve to be fought," added Thyra. It still amazed her how quickly things had changed. The Korthak, once the terror of peaceful civilizations, had become their most dedicated protectors. A communication alert chimed. The main screen showed Admiral Chen calling from the UES Defiant, now permanently stationed in the Zilani system as part of the new Guardian Protocol. "Morning, Thyra," said Chen. "We've got a situation developing in the Vegan sector. A slave trading ring has been attacking refugee ships. The Korthak fleet is already moving to intercept." "Do they need backup?" asked Thyra. "From humans?" "No, from Zilani mediators?" "Probably yes. The slavers are trying to negotiate, claiming they're just legitimate traders." Thyra sighed. This was becoming a common problem. Many criminal organizations tried to hide behind legal gray areas, knowing that the Korthak preferred straightforward combat to complex negotiations. "I'll take the Celestial Harmony and meet them there," said Thyra. "Captain Rivera is training our defense corps today, but he can join us if needed." "Sounds good. Oh, and Thyra, tell your people they did great work on the Talar situation last week. The refugees are already setting up farms on New Haven." The connection ended, and Thyra prepared for another day of what had become routine in the new galactic order. Somewhere peaceful people were in danger. The Guardian Protocol would respond with human tactical expertise, Korthak military might, and Zilani diplomatic skill. Meanwhile, on the surface of Zalara Prime, Captain Marcus Rivera watched a group of young Zilani practice combat maneuvers in the training facility that had once been an art museum. The transformation was remarkable, though it had taken months to achieve. "Remember," Rivera called out as Kira Nalven led her squad through a simulated shipboarding, "you're not trying to hurt anyone. You're trying to stop them from hurting others. There's a difference." Kira nodded and continued the exercise. She had become one of the best students, overcoming her initial fear to become a skilled defensive fighter. More importantly, she had learned to teach others, spreading the knowledge to Zilani across their territory. "Captain," called Vorkath from across the training floor, "we have a problem with the new recruits from the outer colonies. They're still having trouble with the concept of controlled violence." Rivera wasn't surprised. The Zilani from worlds that had never been attacked had an even harder time understanding warfare than those who had seen the Korthak invasion. But they were learning slowly but surely. "Set up a simulation," Rivera suggested. "Show them a scenario where their family is in danger and only they can help. Make it personal. It was a lesson Earth had taught humanity long ago. Sometimes you had to fight, not because you wanted to, but because the people you loved needed protection." Across the galaxy on the Korthak flagship Blood Honor, Warlord Thexgaran reviewed tactical reports with a satisfaction he had never felt during his raiding days. His warriors were finally fighting enemies that deserved to be fought. "The Syndicate fleet has been defeated," reported his tactical officer, Captain Torkash. 17 slaver ships captured, over 3,000 prisoners freed. "Our casualties were minimal." "Excellent," said Thexgaran. "And the prisoners?" "The Zilani negotiation team is already working with them. It seems many of the slavers were forced into service by the Syndicate leadership. Ambassador Thyra believes they can be rehabilitated. This was another change that had surprised the Korthak. In their old ways, enemy combatants were either killed or enslaved. The idea that some enemies could become allies was revolutionary. "Signal the fleet," ordered Thexgaran. "Set course for the Vegan sector. The humans report new pirate activity there." As his ship moved through hyperspace toward another battle, Thexgaran reflected on how much his life had changed. He was still a warrior, still a leader of warriors. But now he fought for something greater than conquest. He fought for a vision of a galaxy where strength protected weakness, where courage served justice. The humans had given the Korthak something they had never expected to find: a worthy cause. Back on Unity Station, Thyra received a message that made her smile. It was from a small colony in the Beta sector, thanking the Guardian Protocol for driving off raiders who had been terrorizing their system. The colonists were simple farmers who grew food for refugee worlds. They had no military, no weapons, no way to defend themselves. 6 months ago, they would have been enslaved or killed. Today, they were safe because 3 very different species had learned to work together. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Kim, "we're getting reports of Guardian Protocol recruitment centers opening on 12 new worlds this week. The word is spreading." "Good," said Thera. "The more species that join us, the safer the galaxy becomes." She looked out at the mixed fleet patrolling around Zalara Prime. Human ships designed for efficiency, Korthak vessels built for power, and Zalani craft that managed to be both beautiful and functional. Each species brought their own strengths to the Alliance. The humans brought knowledge and experience. They knew how to fight, how to organize, how to turn weakness into strength. More importantly, they knew when not to fight, when diplomacy was better than warfare. The Korthak brought courage and determination. They were willing to face any danger to protect the innocent. Their very presence was enough to deter most criminals, and their skills in battle were unmatched. The Zalani brought wisdom and compassion. They could negotiate peace where others saw only conflict. They could heal the wounds that war left behind, both physical and emotional. Together, they were creating something new in the galaxy, not an empire built on conquest, but a community built on mutual protection and respect. A year later, Ambassador Thyra stood before the Galactic Council, representing the Guardian Protocol. The Great Assembly Hall was filled with representatives from over 200 species, many of whom had joined the Alliance in recent months. "The annual report is simple," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "Piracy in Guardian space is down by 80%. Slavery has been completely eliminated in our territory. Refugee resettlement programs have helped over 10 million displaced persons find new homes." Applause filled the hall, but Thyra held up a hand for silence. "But we have not achieved these things through conquest or force. We have achieved them through cooperation. Human tactical knowledge, Korthak military strength, and Zalani diplomatic skills working together for a common goal." She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. "When I first activated that ancient beacon, I thought I was calling for saviors. Instead, I called for teachers. The humans taught us that strength and compassion are not enemies. The Korthak taught us that courage and honor go hand in hand. And perhaps we taught them that there are victories worth more than conquest." In the audience, Admiral Chen, Warlord Thexgaran, and Captain Rivera sat together, watching as the galaxy voted to formally recognize the Guardian Protocol as a peacekeeping force. The vote was unanimous. Later, as the 3 leaders shared a meal in a quiet restaurant overlooking the Galactic Council building, they reflected on how far they had all come. "So what's next?" asked Rivera. "We've pretty much cleaned up this sector of the galaxy." "There are other sectors," said Chen. "Other species that need protection, other bullies that need to be stopped, and other warriors who need to learn the difference between strength and brutality," added Thexgaran. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching ships from dozens of species move peacefully through the traffic lanes outside. "You know," said Rivera finally, "when I first read that distress signal, I thought we were just going to rescue some aliens and come home. I never imagined we'd end up changing the galaxy." "The galaxy changed itself," said Chen. "We just gave it a little push in the right direction." "The right direction toward what?" asked Thexgaran. Chen smiled and raised her glass. "Toward a future where nobody has to be afraid to call for help." They drank to that future, 3 warriors from 3 very different worlds, united by a simple belief. that the strong should protect the weak, that courage should serve justice, and that even in the vast darkness of space there could be light. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.